Well, hello and welcome to the Super Connector show, where I'm delighted to be joined by Nicky Jolley, who is the Managing Director of HR today. How are you doing, Nicky?
I'm good, thank you. How are you? Have you had a good weekend?
I have. I've had a lovely weekend, and you've just come back from a lovely cruise, so you're looking all tanned and refreshed. Yeah. So, and congratulations on your wedding anniversary again.
Thank you. 26 years.
Yeah. Well, you must be doing something right.
Must be, yeah, definitely.
So do you want to just start by, for anyone that doesn't know who you are, like tell us a bit about yourself and what you do at HR today?
Okay, so I'm the founder of HR Today. We started 15 years ago, and we support all industries, all sectors with their HR. So it's mainly for companies that don't have HR, but some companies we do work with their HR, giving them the backup and the support so that they don't need a bigger team in the business. But I would say probably 75% of our companies don't have any HR, and we do all of their HR for them. And the size varies from 5 employees up to 3 employees.
Yeah. So do you so you say they're different size, different sector. Is there a certain type of business that you prefer working with, or do you tend to work with a certain type?
Yeah, so my background is manufacturing and engineering. So we have quite a lot of engineering manufacturing companies, but we're also finding a trend with IT and AI and developers. So we
Right.
tend
Okay.
to work with quite a few of those companies as well now.
Mhm.
But we vary from GP practices, so your doctors,
Mhm.
to dry cleaners. But like I say, it's the majority of our spread is across engineering, manufacturing, and then the IT sector.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I know you have got a background in those industries. I mean, so you work for a oil or petrol refinery company. You've worked in an internet service provider as in-house HR, and you've also worked for a university as well. So you've got a good broad range of experience working in-house.
That's right. I worked for Petroplus for nearly 10 years. So that was an oil refinery down at Port Clarence near Hartlepool.
Mhm.
That was interesting. I learned an awful lot there, working with unions and negotiations, collective agreements, and obviously the engineering, the sales, and the marketing. And prior to that, I worked for Onyx Internet, which is where I met Neil Stevenson and Alistair Waite. And that's where I found my HR career, actually. It was down to Alistair giving me that opportunity and letting me go to university and study my master's degree. So they supported me with that whilst I worked for Onyx, and then my career just took off from there. So
Yeah, so exciting because obviously that was a scaling, like high growth internet company. So there must have been a lot of changes going on during the time that when you were there.
yeah, it
To
was certainly a baptism of fire, shall we say. So considering I'd never done HR at all, um, it was very much hitting the ground running, learning. It was actually great. I went to Teesside University and I got a lot of support and help from them.
yeah,
And you meet other people in the sector as well that help you and support you, of which I've still got friends today that I met at Teesside while we did our master's degree. So I have to say the dissertation was probably the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life. It was 33,000 words,
wow,
and I did that on does recruitment align with the business strategy?
yeah,
So that was interesting. Probably never read it again since I did it because I was so sick of it. But yeah, it was interesting to how you align HR practices to overall business's strategy.
right,
And I do think that's still missed a lot in
yeah,
today's world.
yeah. So did am I right? Did you spend a bit of time as a recruitment consultant as well,
Well,
or not?
yes, ironically, I went to do recruitment. I was working at Northumbria University and I was just a temp there covering after I'd left Onyx Internet.
Mhm.
And I was a temp up there, and it was a fill-in job for somebody that was on the sick. So I knew it didn't have any sort of long-term aspirations. And I saw a job in recruitment for a lady called Julie Latham, bless her. My husband had worked previously. And then I went to work for a thinking recruitment would be for me because I'm very nosy. I like to know everything about everybody. But it didn't take me long to realize that you're asking the same questions and people respond in the same way. And I just thought, I need something more than this, really. And the job at Petroplus came up, and it was a maternity cover. It was for 9 months, working at the oil refinery in the marketing division in Stockton and Hartlepool. And I met the lady who was going on maternity, and I kind of realised that she probably wasn't going to come back. Her husband was moving down to Devon with his job, and I'm thinking she's really not going to commute with 2 children all the way up here. So it was a bit of a punt, but I went to see Julie Latham at the Calibre Recruitment where I was working at the time, and just said to her, if I was to ever write my perfect HR job description, this would be it. It was unionised. There was 250 employees. It was a marketing division, and then there was the oil refinery, the shift workers and the contractors and everything. And I just said, I know I'm working for you, but I would really like to apply for the job. She was a bit taken aback, but she supported me all the way. And she said, obviously, I couldn't fill this vacancy because I was a bit biased, because I said, I'll just put myself forward. So she said she had to speak to Petroplus, and they were happy for me to apply for the job as long as I wasn't filling the role. And anyway, long story short, I did get the job. Julie, bless her, had actually said she would keep my job open for me, with it only being a temporary position. And long story short, I didn't go back to recruitment. I stayed there until, unfortunately, the administrators came in December 2011, and I was made redundant in March 2012. And that's when I started HR Today.
Right. Okay. No, that's interesting. Well, a few things that you've said there, I think. Well, being clear on what you want and what you don't want, and not being afraid to put yourself forward, like Shy Ben's getting out. You've seen the perfect role, and yes, okay, what's the worst going to happen? Like Julie probably was a bit taken aback that you'd wanted to put yourself forward for a role that you were trying to fill, but you obviously did the right thing. It was the right thing for you and the business as well. So yeah, don't miss out on opportunities. Go for things.
I think that's what I've learned running a business, that you have to take risks in life. If you don't take risks, you never move forward. And we've took some risks along the way. It's scary. Starting up self-employed is really scary. I went from a very large salary with lots of benefits and everything to literally nothing. And until you get that first client, you're thinking every day, what more can I do? Where can I turn? How am I going to bring in the money to pay the bills? And it is frightening. And I was lucky that I had Mark, who was able to support me, who's my husband. And, the bills did get paid, but there was scary moments where we just thought, how long can we do this? And what's going to happen, really?
Yeah. Well,
you look back and it's exciting.
Yeah, no, it is exciting. So, but your business has got on to do very well. So you're like 15, well, almost 16 years running HR Today. So you got made redundant from your previous role. So was it more out of a necessity, or was it something that you were already thinking about doing? Had you already decided you wanted to be your own boss?
My husband was self-employed. He's been self-employed now for probably 25 years.
All right, okay.
And when he first started out, it's really hard. It's unpredictable earnings. You don't know what's going to happen. And I remember at the time saying, we would never both be self-employed. This isn't what we're going to do. It's too dangerous. It's too risky. We can't do this. And then I think things happen in life, and you either grab them with both hands and give it a go. But, I was made redundant. There were a few jobs around, but not huge sort of potential, especially at the level that I'd been used to working to. I used to work to board level, and, we dealt with different refineries around Europe, did quite a lot of travel, and it was quite difficult to think what would fill that void. But I'd also had my daughter, so I used to work my hours in 4 days instead of 5. And it's amazing. And obviously we hadn't had COVID by this time, but it's amazing to think how flexibility can keep you in a job. Now, don't get me wrong. When I worked at the refinery, it was challenging. It was hard work. We on average worked 60 hours a week. That's just what the management team did. You were always on call. It was a 24/7 site. So you had to be available. But just knowing I could have that day off a week with my daughter when it came to applying for jobs really put a barrier in my way, where now in today's world, people don't apply for jobs unless they get flexibility. They don't, unless they can get hybrid. But in my day, it was kind of a real thing to be able to have that one day off a week. So we had some very difficult decisions. It was, I signed on the dole for 6 weeks, and I've actually worked in a job centre for 4 years before my HR career started. And I've got to say, it's probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And every week I would go in and say, this is where I've been, and I've been networking, and they really weren't interested, but I was petrified that, I was going to get arrested for fraud because I was getting this £71 a week on the dole at the time. Anyway, I was so stressed about it, and I wasn't sleeping, and I thought I was getting followed to every event I went to. I wasn't earning any money. I was just keeping myself busy. And my husband and I just said, look, for the money that you're getting from the dole, you're just going to have to sign off. It's making you ill. So I did. I signed off, and within 2 weeks of signing off, I got my first retained client. So maybe it was holding me back. I don't know. It was that fear of when I get a client, I won't get the door. I don't know. But it was interesting to see that what motivates you and what makes you work. But we've never looked back. We've had our moments. We've sat down and thought, God, why did we do this? But what it has done is it give us the opportunity to have the life that we want. And, if we want to go on holiday, we go on holiday, but we work when we're on holiday. So being self-employed.
Yeah, I know. I remember when I got made redundant, after I was working for British Airways, I got made redundant around about 2000, and it's quite a. You realise that you're a small cog in a big machine, but I just took that as an opportunity to move in a new direction, and it's not nice being made redundant, but you can use it as an opportunity to go in a different direction, and it sounds like you did do the right thing. What does your husband do, or what was he doing at the time?
So he's an independent financial advisor. So he has his own business. So MN Consultancy. Unfortunately, we weren't in the marketing game, so it wasn't what it said on the tin. It literally was Mark and Nicky Consultancy. So unless you know what he does, you wouldn't know from the title. But he's built up his own team. We work from the same building in Darlington. He has the ground floor, and I have the upstairs. And he's got a growing team as well now. So it's interesting, but he was always the one watching the finance, making sure the financial decisions were correct in what we did and how we moved forward. And ironically, it was his model that we used to start HR Today up. So in financial services, you can get financial advisors that take, they put your money somewhere and they take the big lump sums up front. Or you can take trail, and you bring in a little drip trail every month, and you look after that client, and it's your responsibility to ensure that their money's in the right place and you're doing what you should be doing. So when we were thinking about how HR Today would work, what we wanted was that residual income and that regular income that came in, because HR, it's easy to go out and do consultancy and you get a one-off bit of money and you think it's great, but where's the next lot coming from? So we started very, very early on that we put people on retained contracts, and it was 3 or 5 year contracts. Initially, it was a year when I first started. And we realized that just wasn't long enough to build the rapport, the relationship and everything. So my clients now are on 3 and 5 year contracts. We've been working with clients. I think our longest one is 13 years it's been with us. So, I think you can take skills from different sectors. You can share experiences and knowledge. We actually have some joint clients, especially from manufacturing, oil and gas. My husband's company will look after their pension scheme, so he'll put them in a private pension, look after that. He looks after the directors, but he also helps with some of our clients who death in service cover and private medical and things like that. So we even get synergy with clients. So we have to always be careful with GDPR, make sure we've got permissions, but introductions and things like that, we've helped each other along the way to both have clients that today we still have.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you've supported each other, and then, but also, I think when you know someone close to you who's self-employed, it makes it a bit more realistic. Like you can see yourself maybe doing it once. If you don't know anyone, if none of your friends or family run a business, it can just seem impossible. But if
Well, nobody teaches you how to run a business, you know,
No.
nobody tells you how to balance the books. Nobody says you need cash flow. And it's just nice, to be fair, to have that soundboard. And, you know, we'd been through it with Mark, so we'd learned the hard way, if you like. But he'd had a great mentor, a guy called Peter, who taught him how to do it and also things how not to do it. We'd learned from that. So then I was in a position to be able to learn from that and then go into my own self-employed status and make sure that we had provisions and that we, you know, we didn't make silly mistakes. And we're probably our own worst critics. So, you know, I'll critique Mark and say, what are you doing that for? Why are we doing that? How are we expanding that? And, you know, any new ideas we have, it's like our board meeting, if you like. We sit at home and go through it and get the flip chart out, and, you know, we go through all the things that are good about it and bad about it. And like I say, every decision we've made in life, we've had to take risks. And I think the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward, but also the biggest loss if it doesn't work. So to be able to do that in partnership has been amazing, really.
Yeah, cool. So when, I know you touched on it a little bit, when do you think people should start speaking to you and your team at HR Today? Like,
oh, it's really hard. Obviously, the first response should be the minute you're going to employ somebody, you should have your ducks in a row. You should have everything in there. Realistically, I remember when I started out self-employed, I didn't have any money and everybody wanted to sell to me. And you have to sit there and say, what is the priority? You know, if I can employ somebody, great. But if that then means I then have to bring in HR and I need a bookkeeper and I need all the other things that go with it because I don't know, you'd never make the leap to bring the employee in. So yes, I'd love it from the beginning, but realistically, I think you've got to be practical about the finances of it. And I think if you have the fundamentals when you bring an employee on, there are support out there. You know, ACAS give you guidelines and support. An employee should have a contract of employment by day one. Now legislation has changed. You don't get your 8 weeks anymore. They should have that. And you should treat people the way you want to be treated yourself. So I think if you're fair and reasonable and you have open dialogue while you're starting out with your first team, realistically, you could probably manage without an outsourced HR. As you think your departments are growing, and especially with the up and coming legislations coming, I mean, I've got a sheet at the moment just with what we think will get signed off for next year. Next year's probably the biggest shake up in employment law I've seen in my career ever. So it's huge. And the reality is, and one of the values when I set my business up was I worked for a huge billion pound turnover organization, and each country had a HR function. And then I had my husband who had one employee, and by law, he has the same duty of responsibility to his employee as we did for our hundreds of employees and thousands across Europe. But he doesn't get any support for that. He doesn't get any help for that. He's a one-man band who's brought in his first employee. So one of my values and one of my sort of missions was to make HR affordable and to give you the best service you could get. And I believe that's what we've achieved. You know, I think when I compare what internal HR departments do to what we do, it's quite embarrassing from a HR field. But what you've got to remember from a HR function in-house is they get involved in all the day-to-day running of the business and everything else that's going on. So they don't really get to focus just on HR, where that's what we do day in, day out. We're updating policies and procedures. We're protecting our clients. It's case law. We're making sure employees feel engaged. So what I would say is the sooner you can afford to bring HR in, the better. We usually have a gauge of probably 4 or 5 employees or more. But what I would say is we have many different services. We have now ad hoc advice lines, so people can ring up and pay an hourly rate just to get some advice. We have handbook services where you can just buy a handbook that comes with 2 free updates. So if you were to buy a handbook now, you would actually get all of next year's updates when they come in April and October covered within the purchase of that handbook. And then obviously what we're renowned for and what we do best is our retained services. So every month you pay relative to the number of employees that you have on board. And then you get unlimited support. So you get an account manager, you can speak to your account manager daily, you can email them, you can even come into the office at no additional cost. And we support you as if we are your own HR department. And we do everything for you to the point of print. Everything is done. We brief the manager, we talk them through it. That's our remote service. We then have a service where we do everything for you. So if you want us to do investigations, grievances, we bolt that on and we do that for you. And then we do, the new buzzword is fractional HR. It's where you go on site, you work with the client, you're getting to know every employee, you're getting ingrained in the day-to-day strategy, the support and everything else. So we literally do everything from a quick advice line, you want some advice, you're not sure what you're doing, all the way through to a fully fledged HR function within your company, but all of those at a fractional price of what you would pay to employ somebody full-time who then needs an assistant to do all the admin and the paperwork. Then you've got your own costs, your pensions, your holidays, your sickness, your maternity and paternity. We cover all of that. We make sure that 100% of the time you have somebody you require to help you at whatever level you need help with.
Yeah, makes total sense. No, that was a great overview of everything that you do and the reason why people should work with it. I mean, like our business, we don't have employees. It's just me and Neil at the moment, but we're probably all going to bring in some people soon, and we're going to work with you, right? So I'm saying that there. Right? So
I would cry if you didn't.
No, I know I don't know anything about HR. I know obviously you want to look after your staff, you want to look after your team, but I don't know the ins and outs of legislation, and I don't want to know. Like, I want to know that I'm doing things right, but I don't have the time, and I don't know where to look.
That's the key.
Yeah, and so I would want peace of mind with you and your team. Who that's what you do. You are the experts at that. So.
It's amazing how many directors I speak to that, well, I do the HR, and I said, when do you find time to do that? Usually at home on the sofa while I'm watching telly, and I'm going, all right, okay. And they don't put value to the time that they're spending. And I'm not saying wasting, but the time that they spend doing something that they don't even know if it's right or wrong because they're Googling it or they're using AI or whatever. And they don't put value to how much time they're wasting in terms of their own life, their family life, their hobbies, their, because they just think they're saving money and they can do this and they'll fit it in. But some clients, when we've converted them, they go, do you know what? Just to be able to sit down on a night and have peace of mind and not have to do it. It's just uplifting. And you can see the spark in their eyes at how many hours. I would say on average, we should save an employer who's got maybe 5 to 10 employees, we should be saving them between 5 and 10 hours of admin alone work, because we do everything from administration to HR support for your employees. Now, if you just think as a business owner what you could do with 5 or 10 hours extra a week, it would be remarkable.
Yeah, well, it's like some of them will be trying to cram it in during the day, but if they're doing it on an evening or a weekend as well, like you say, it's eating into their life, and they need downtime. They need to spend time with their friends or family, or just doing whatever that they like to do to relax. It's they're going to burn out otherwise, aren't they?
And the thing is, the worst thing is, and what's really sad is when you see people who've worked really hard to get it right, and it goes wrong, and they've got it wrong with a technicality or the paperwork. Tribunals are becoming more and more popular, or at least getting to ACAS and the negotiations with ACAS. That's going to get even worse. It's going to get more complex. They're now going to be giving employees up to 6 months to put a claim in. At the moment, it's 3 months. So if you think you've got a problem and then 6 months later that lands on your desk and you think, crikey, I can't even remember who they were. Are you going to have records of what you were sat on your sofa doing? Are you going to be able to defend your position? And unfortunately, they're predicting that it could take up to a year to actually get to tribunal. So that's 18 months of your life that you're trying to pick pieces up and trying to remember, where we record all of that for you. That's just there. You come back to us and say, so-and-so left a year ago. What have we got? We've got it all. Someone sat on the sofas just sent an email, and they might be able to find that email later on. It's scary what is coming and how much more diligent you have to be in your records and recording and reporting things, because we're going to need to remember things for a lot longer.
So you mentioned a bit there. So what are the big things that are coming in next year that you can mention, like new changes to legislation?
Gosh, I mean, statutory sick pay is going to come in from day 1 instead of day 3. So at the moment, there's a 3-day waiting period. That ultimately has a knock-on effect. I'm not saying that everybody who's off sick is not sick, but at the moment, there's a slight deterrent that if I'm off sick, I'm not going to get paid for 3 days. 3 days is a lot to not get any money. So from day 1, they will start to receive only statutory sick pay unless your policies say different. People can join you who are pregnant or their partners are pregnant, and from day 1 they're going to be entitled to paternity, maternity, parental leave and all of that. So normally you've got 26 weeks to think, well, I've got 26 weeks before, you know, people are likely to get pregnant. I could get them onboarded and get them working with us and understand the business. Literally they could come in and go on maternity leave. So there's some other protected disclosures coming in. I'm just looking down the list because some of it's statutory, simplifying trade union recognitions, which won't affect a lot of people. Although unions are going to be getting stronger powers and getting more influence. So that is going to be something that's going to be coming in that companies need to be aware of and not frightened of. It's amazing how many companies I speak to regarding trade unions and that they're frightened of them and that they're going to know more than they do. The reality is they will have had training, and if you haven't got any HR training, they are going to know more. And it's important that you stay calm and follow what procedures you've got, or bring people in. Because another thing I didn't mention is we do consultancy, so we do one-off things. So if you do find yourself in a bit of a mess, you can call people like us in who can help you out. I mentioned the extended tribunals from 3 months to 6 months. Just looking of... there's going to be a duty to inform workers of their rights to join unions. So literally you would be expected to receive a pack when you start a company and say you have the right to join this union we recognise, or other unions. So it's interesting what's coming and what's going on. There's a possibility of increased collective redundancy protection. So they're going to be increasing things like that. There's a lot of different things that will only affect some people. There's things about tipping and things like that, but it's mainly the day 1 rights, and that is going to be making sure you've got your ducks in a row. Probations is going to be a big thing. You know, if they bring in the probation process, we don't know if that's going to affect what people can get from day 1. There was talk that you would be on a 9-month probation and they would reduce any compensation that you would be entitled to for unfair dismissal in those first 9 months. But they seem to have dismissed that, and they're doing day 1 rights, which means that from day 1, if you are unfairly dismissed in that at any period moving forward from day 1, you would be entitled to put a claim in through the employment tribunal.
Wow.
And, you know, unfair dismissal, we always work on a worst case scenario is average of a year's salary. So I think what employers need to be very careful of is, could they afford to lose a year's salary for somebody because they want to get rid of them because it hasn't worked and they haven't followed a robust probation process. So it's very important that open dialogue, formal meetings, and, you know, in the past, currently as we stand, your probation was a bit of what I call the honeymoon period. Either party could say, you know, it's not for me, I thought it was, it's not going to work. It's not going to be easy going forward for employers. Employees, you know, the reality is they go, it's not working for me, I'm off. And there's no risk to either party as long as you've done everything correct. But if an employer decides that they don't fit culturally, they're winding everybody up, actually they don't have the skill that you thought they had, you're going to have to manage that much more robustly. So it's all about day 1 protection, doing things properly and not flying by the seat of your pants, which, to be fair, has probably been a bit of a way for some companies, thinking, they're on probation, they're less than 2 years service. It doesn't matter. And you know what? 90% of them get away with it. 10% can still see themselves in tribunal. So I work on a rule of thumb: treat people as you want to be treated, and do the best you can to be open and transparent and follow process. If you don't know what the process is, ask. If you do all of those things, you are less likely to be taken to a tribunal.
Yeah, you've explained that really clearly, and I suppose it's like you can see why the government's bring this in, because they want to protect workers' rights, and they want to because there are some bad employers definitely out there who don't look after their staff and mistreat them, or so you want to protect against that, but there is potentially a big risk for smaller companies who aren't doing things like ticking all the boxes and doing everything correctly from day one, that some people might take advantage of that and might try to take them to
bankrupt companies now.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of small company, it could be the end of them, and then it is enough to put people off bringing in staff, which is the wrong attitude. If you want to grow your business, you're going to have to bring people in.
Yeah.
So if you're going to bring people in, if you've already got people in place, or you're going to bring people in the next 6-12 months or whatever, get all your ducks in a row, make sure you're doing things properly, bring in you and your team, or just at least make sure that you know that you're doing things properly, so that you're not caught out.
Yeah, do everything you can. At the end of the day, these judges and tribunals, they're not augurs. They genuinely look at the people that are in the room, and what they want to know is that you've not gone out of your way to be a horrible employer. They want to know that you've done everything you thought you should be doing. And yes, you may not have been able to afford to bring an outsourced HR in, but if you could have done, they'll be questioning, why have you tried to do this yourself? Why do you think you're an expert in this when your industry is something completely different? So judges will look at it, and if you've been fair and reasonable and you keep your records up to date, they're going to not necessarily side with you, but it's going to be less of a compensatory loss to you because they're not. You haven't just walked in one day and you've got a hangover and a bad head and you're fired. The Alan Sugars of the world.
Not Lord Sugar. No.
Support that. Yeah, you're not Alan Sugar, and you probably don't have the money behind you to be able to pay for that off. So it's just be sensible and ask for help. Approach companies like us. I mean, we do have our free employment seminars coming up.
Tell us about them. Yeah, when are they? I know you gave me some dates before, but what are they? When are they? And what are they? What's the difference?
So they're sort of a morning, a couple of hours, a bit of networking to start with. Then what we'll do is we'll run through the legislation changes that are predicted for next year, and the basics that you should have in place, what you should be doing to protect yourself and your employees. There are 2 dates. One's the 17th of October, and that's at Newton Aycliffe. And the other one is the 7th of November at the Porsche Garage at Teesside. They're both on our website, which is hr2day.co.uk events. And all I would say is, if you're planning on coming, register, because we are limited with numbers on both venues. And it's an opportunity to come and ask any questions. You can meet some of the team. Unfortunately, they all can't be there because we've got to leave some in the office to look after the clients. You get to meet me and my Rebecca, who will be delivering on the day. And we'll be there for questions, support you with anything you've got going on, but more importantly, give you an update of what we believe is going to happen and the steps that you need to be putting in place. It tends to be a mixture of our own clients and people who don't have HR. And we also get some HR professionals that come along who are just updating their skills and making sure they haven't missed anything with the legislation. So it's very friendly, very informal, and it's free to attend. You get a cup of coffee. So what more could you want?
And two very fancy, stylish venues as well.
Yeah, the Porsche is very exciting. We've gone there for many years, and I think I'm on their sales list. I think over time I've sold about 5 cars with people who've come to our events and gone, let's have a look. Yeah, so Porsche are great to us at Teesside. They really look after us.
Awesome. Well, what we'll do, I know you mentioned it, but we'll put some links to the events underneath this video as well for people to see. And when I share this interview as well, we'll send it out further on social media and on email newsletter as well. So we'll include it include them in that as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, lots to think. There's probably some people who are business owners or leaders who've been in business a long time and think, oh well, this is how we've always done it, or this is how we used to do it in the 80s or the 90s or the early 2000s, and they're still basing their approach or the attitude to that. So if they're not up to date with the latest legislation, they can fall foul of that. So definitely, whether you're a new business owner or an older business owner, I think it's worth. There's no harm in having it come along to your event and finding out, or having a chat with you, isn't it?
Yeah. We don't charge. We come out and have a chat, see what you've got, see what you've done. I suppose earlier this year, conversations like that were happening, but I've been in business 20 years, Nicky. I've always done it this way. Yeah, but you've just taught me you're expanding, that you're growing, you're going to have new people coming in, your dynamics are going to change. People
Yeah, I was just going to say, you break it up a little bit there. I was just going to say about there's different levels to your business as well. So your systems and your processes are going to be different if you've got 10 employees or 15 employees or 20 employees or more compared to five employees. So it's so you can help with the organization as it grows, especially if they've got that retainer in place. So yeah, very good. Next thing I was going to talk about is optimism versus realism. Oh, Nicky's she's lost her connection, so I'm going to do a bit of filling here. So I was just going to talk a bit more about optimism versus realism. I know that most employees or most entrepreneurs and business owners are optimists. They're very, very they don't want to think that things are going to go wrong. They're always looking forward to the future. They're excited about the business and where it can go, and they don't necessarily think about when things could go wrong. So the sooner that you can do that, the better. Definitely would encourage you to take a look at Nicky and her team. So I'll just remind her again, HR2, the number 2, day.co.uk. We will put the links to the events underneath this video. If you're listening via podcast, check out the website. There'll also be some links in the description as well. But I think Nicky has lost her connection, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do now, we're going to end this Super Connector show now, and look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much. Cheers. Bye.